Hello everybody, back again. I'm on a roll. So I wanted to do a dedicated reading on Putin. Now, some of you will already know there's a new tarot reader on the block, Dweller Between Waters, and she's fabulous. I think she operates out of Bulgaria. And coming from an Eastern Bloc country, she has a really good understanding of how Russia works, as does Psychic Violetta, coming from Poland. So they've been brought up in a way that they understand very intimately how the Russian regime works. Okay, so I'd recommend Dweller Between Waters. I think she's wonderful and deserves support. Okay, so this reading, again using Toth, I'll just bring this down, on Vladimir Putin. Let's see what's happening with Putin. Vladimir Putin, what's his game? What are his ambitions? What's Putin's vision? Putin's vision. Okay, I'm going to do a 10-card spread to begin. We'll see what happens. Yeah. So I'll arrange these cards because they're so big. Just give me a moment. Okay, now I think it's easier if I hold them up here for you. His signifier is the Chariot. So the Chariot always represents ambition and charging forth. Charging forth, remembering without the reins, charging forth, nothing will stand in the way of the Chariot. So it's very clearly a path. He has a grand plan and he's sticking to it. So he's a very ideologically driven man. We know this. He's KGB. There's no such thing as ex-KGB. So even though they've changed the initials of the organisation, he was in and of the mentality of Russia being the dominant power in the world, and always feeling that if Russia wasn't completely dominant, the other powers that stand in its way should be run over by the Chariot, and the natural order of things is Russian supremacy. So that is not surprising, it's extremely clear. So I'm reading these horizontally now. In the earlier days, let's say the younger Putin, or the more personal side of Putin. Let's see. So we had the Two of Discs. He's always been a manipulator. And when he came to power, no one had heard of him. It was, he appeared suddenly as president of Russia, and everyone in the West at that time, God, it's a long time ago now, was saying, who's Vladimir Putin? But it wasn't just in the West. Journalists in Russia, very brave people they are, were saying, who's Vladimir Putin? He came out of relative obscurity. He'd always had the ambition, and he manipulated his way into the role very successfully. We have here the Six of Cups. It's called pleasure in the Toth deck. But in the context of a political reading on a very driven man, I think you could say that rather than pleasure, it was, or how will I put this? He took pleasure in the difficulty of the role rather than personal pleasure. I'm sure he wasn't devoid of personal pleasure, but it's not so much that. I think pleasure in the role, he got pleasure from power and manipulation. Now, having said it mightn't be about personal pleasure, it might be. This is the card of lust. So there was more to the younger Vladimir than met the eye. He was susceptible in many ways to the pull of lust, but in the Thoth deck, it correlates in the other decks to the Strength card. He's an extremely strong-willed individual, and that, in a way, to me, what I'm thinking is all his sexual energy and every fibre of his being went into the pursuit of power. So, in the recent past, he has the Tower, so radical change coming about. That'd be, I would suggest, the people of Russia wanting to have a vote. How naive were they? Yes, so I think there was a radical change in Russia than the Russia he knew as a young man and a KGB man, that there was an attempt to modernize Russia and to democratize Russia, and to him that was a crisis point. He then became the president, and then those of you who follow Russia might remember they had a token election and another token presidency after a couple of terms, Medvedev or someone. Everyone knew at the time, both in Russia and in the West, he was just Putin's plaything and Putin was still pulling the strings. So that's how Putin emerged from the Tower. And now he's there to stay. In the centre position, a very important position, is the Four of Wands. Now, in the Thoth deck, it's completion, but it's reversed. So in other words, his mission is not yet complete. This is interesting too. Next to it, another reversed card, the Wheel of Fortune, reversed. So again, he is totally compelled and he totally believes he was destined to save Russia. He believes that's what he's doing. But upside down would indicate to me that he's misdirected in the sense of how he feels he is the only person who can accomplish that. It's his wheel of destiny and it's only him. So, in other words, what it is also saying is he trusts no one. Even his closest, he trusts no one. Right. Now, what are his desires and scope for the world? So, the Knight of Discs, or Pentacles, so very motivated by money, controlling money, obviously. But this is very much a warrior figure, and it's saying to me one of the roles that Russia has taken on is to keep conflict going in the Middle East, because you can sell a lot of arms if there's an ongoing conflict somewhere, and they sell a lot of arms to the Middle East. But so do the UK and so do the USA, and so they're not alone. But it's a very big earner, money. You have here the Knight of Cups. This is his emotional commitment to this. He has an emotional desire to rule. So, as well as crude power, as well as financial power, there's a manipulation. Don't forget, he's a born manipulator. So this is more, what does he have in mind? What does he want from Trump? What does he want from the USA? Trump is helping Putin a great deal in this endeavour, because these trade deals that he wants to renegotiate, the fact that Trump spits on the traditional allies of the USA of the last 60 years means it's putting pressure on the EU, and that is Vladimir Putin's game. If he can weaken the United States by sowing chaos and distrust in the communities, which he's doing, if he can fracture the EU, Russia comes out on top. This is the aim of the game. Outcome, though, as indeed in the previous reading, ultimately defeat. Now, that could be defeat in the next 12 months. Someone else could assassinate him, or he could be rolled by another power block within Russia. This could be in 10 years' time. The tarot is not brilliant on timelines. But ultimately, he won't succeed. But he won't succeed unless Trump is also defeated, because Trump is playing into his hands. So there you go. That's, as I see, Vladimir Putin's past, present and immediate future. All right then, everybody. I'll be back with more as soon as I can. Bye.